This show is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy. Mental health isn't talking to someone on a couch, it's self-awareness. Learning to set boundaries, taking care of your emotional well-being. Visit betterhelp.com/super and see what mental health is really about. Hey, brother! Okay, you guys, I have been rewatching Turning Red a bit lately, and I have finally spotted something that I'm very surprised I didn't catch sooner. And that is the fact that the ceremony that Meilin's family uses to separate her from her red panda spirit is shockingly similar to something we see in Soul. It is basically the exact same ceremony that Moonwind teaches 22 and Joe in order to return Joe to his body on Earth. Like, seriously the same. They draw a circle, they chant or sing or perform music, and focus. From there, a portal between realms is formed and you can travel either to or from Earth to the astral realm. And that term, astral realm, is the same term that is used in both movies.
Ahoy there, fellow astral travelers!
The astral realm will be open.
Which then, of course, got us thinking, like, are we witnessing literally the exact same thing, just coming from two different cultural backgrounds? Because it absolutely feels like that's what's going on. I mean, the similarities are just too similar. And if that is the case, then the door is being blown wide open on how souls work inside of the Pixar universe. And more importantly for today, what this means for Meilin, her family, and the red panda. Like, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure Meilin has two souls. Today, we discuss. Guys, before we dive on into today's video, we need to give a huge thank you to Stamps.com. There is the old saying that time is money, and the older I get, the more this becomes true. And this is especially true when you're running a small business. Here at SCB, we're constantly needing to send stuff out to you guys who have supported the show, but packing and shipping takes time, and we need that time to be writing theories. And that's why we love Stamps.com. They make shipping simple, easy, and cost-effective. And it saves us trips to the post office and gives us discounts we can't get anywhere else. Those discounts add up to 30% off USPS and 86% off UPS. All you need is a regular computer and printer, and you are set up within minutes. Plus, Stamps.com works seamlessly with things like Amazon, Shopify, Etsy, or eBay. Plus, our viewers can sign up with promo code SuperCarlin for a special offer that includes a 4-week trial, free postage, and a digital scale. No long-term contracts or commitments are required. Simply head on over to Stamps.com, click the microphone in the top right corner, and enter code SuperCarlin to get started. One last time, Stamps.com, enter code SuperCarlin. Link is in the description down below. Okay, so right out of the gate, whenever you're dealing with souls, it always feels pretty complicated, but don't worry, it really isn't. Let's start by working our way through what we already know about souls and the rules associated with them based on what we know from Soul. We first get to enter the astral realm through 22's Just a Box.
It's the space between the physical and spiritual.
Basically, it is a space where earthbound souls are capable of flitting in and out of. Right away, we can see that many of the occupants of this space are people on Earth who are currently in the zone, which is a sensation that Joe himself experienced earlier that day. And this represents something that so many of us here are able to relate to. It's that idea of like being laser focused, dialed in to whatever art form you're into is. For Joe, this is of course playing the piano, but then for another character who we meet moments later, Moonwind, it's the classic art of sign spinning. And let's be real, guy's got moves. Actually, fun fact, did you know that this is like a real sport with like a worldwide championship? It's wild. But within the astral realm, we also bear witness to lost souls. These are people who were maybe in the zone in the first place, but took their pursuits a little bit too far and got lost within them. And again, this is a concept that's easy to relate to back here on Earth. It could be the idea of a soul-sucking job or just a passion that you pursue so aggressively that you can't find joy in it anymore. Moonwind's goal here is of course to help these lost souls find themselves again so that they can then return back to Earth and pursue that sweet, sweet #van life. Probably. I'm walking through all these particular scenarios though because I think they help us understand how souls work inside of the Pixarverse. It is important to know where souls can exist and to also define the differences between your human body and your soul. The thinking here is that your soul can exist either in the astral plane or here on Earth, but not both. For the hedge fund manager, for example, this is someone who has lost himself inside of the process of his job. make a trade.
Make a trade?
But once Moonwind has worked his magic, the blob monster basically dissolves, and we realize that the soul is still inside of there and is able to make the journey back to Earth.
What am I doing with my life?
On that similar note though, the people who are currently in the zone, the idea would be that their souls have ascended from their physical human bodies and are now existing in this very special place. It is the place where you are most in sync with yourself, which is slightly ironic because you are existing in two separate places. But then that brings us to Joe, who is yet another unique circumstance within the astral plane.
Joe, are you dead?
His soul is actually what is referred to as untethered. That is the technical term for it. What this means for Joe, though, is that while his body is back in New York in the hospital holding on to life, his soul is 100% not with it. This provides the unique circumstance for Moonwind, who now has to find a way to return Joe back to his body, which he does through finding a thin spot. And this is a place that's easy enough to find on the inside, as long as you have an astral pirate ship of sorts. But after Joe then lands inside of a cat,
I put this man's soul in a cat.
we learned that accessing a thin spot from the human side of things requires special circumstances.
And that won't occur until Orcus moves into the House of Gemini.
When is that?
Well, the government calls it 6:30.
So basically, your soul can't be in both places at once, and you can travel back and forth, but it just requires special circumstances. So with all of that in mind, that is how souls travel between the astral realm and the human world. So now we can return our attention to Meilin and compare notes. Throughout Turning Red, we find out that Meilin and all of her female ancestors have been gifted, or depending on your perspective, inconvenienced with the ability to turn into a red panda.
I'm a gross red monster!
I personally remain firmly in Camp Gifted. But this all started hundreds of years ago when the family's matriarch, Sun Yi, prayed to the gods for a way to protect her village, and that's when she was initially gifted with the power to turn into a red panda. Over the years though, the modern day women of the family have found that they don't have the same need for the red panda that Sun Yi had once upon a time. And as such, they have found a ritual that they can perform to contain the condition, I guess. The process involves waiting for a red moon and then drawing a circle on the ground and then essentially singing from the heart. Whatever you want.
I like Tony Bennett. But your grandma, she's from old school.
This will separate the red panda from your body, and then you are able to kind of trap it inside of a piece of jewelry. And according to Mr. Gao,
For as long as the red moon shines, the astral realm will be open.
the ceremony then begins. May starts floating in the air, and Mr. Gao says that they are going to return the panda spirit from which it came. The question is, though, where is that? As we said before, we believe that it is in fact the astral plane, which for May is represented as this kind of bamboo forest where she encounters Sun Yi, who creates a mirror-like image where she can actually separate herself from the panda. As she is physically passing through this mirror, we can physically see the panda exiting her body back on Earth, where Mr. Gao is then containing it inside of a piece of jewelry. But if you're keeping track here, what we're seeing is that they draw a circle just like Moonwind does, and then they start playing music just like Moonwind does, and then a portal appears just like we see in Soul. Now, to be fair, the astral plane does look very different inside of Turning Red than it does inside of Soul, but I also think that can be explained by Meilin's heritage. This is actually something we've already even seen before within the Pixar universe, specifically in Coco, where Miguel's version of the afterlife looks very different than what Joe has seen. But similar to Meilin, it represents a very specific cultural belief, but still shares similarities with Soul, where you can still experience the great beyond via second death. Anyway, the main difference between Turning Red and Soul is that in Turning Red, we are able to actually see the soul outside of the body still in the human world. In this case, it happens to look like a giant red panda. And we also know what the ceremony looks like when done successfully, thanks to the rest of Meilin's family. Basically, they just go back to their state of normalcy, where they continue to live their lives as they had been before and carry around this extra piece of soul inside of their piece of jewelry. But I think it is very important to mark the difference here between them and the stockbroker in Soul. Meilin's aunts have plenty of personality. They are absolutely not soulless. And yet we absolutely see a soul being contained. So the only real conclusion here is that when they receive their gift, they're also receiving a second soul inside of their body. Soon-Yi. And it continues to add up. We know that Soon-Yi pleaded with the gods for a way to protect her family and her village, and they delivered on a red moon. Now again, I think we're seeing this through a very specific cultural lens, but the gods in this case, I have to imagine, are in fact the Jerrys.
Jerry will take it from here.
Thanks, Jerry. Head right on over there to Jerry.
Thank you, Jerry.
And now I'm sure you're thinking like, well, the Jerrys seem like pretty rule-abiding entities that don't really seem to trouble themselves that much with the goings-on of Earth.
I'm a manipulative megalomaniac.
I bet that's Earth's problem.
Well, you'd mostly be right. But they are also very clearly capable of making exceptions when they deem it necessary. Case in point is Joe himself, who very clearly dies right here, but then who they decide is inspiring enough that they would wish to grant him a second chance instead of forcing him to go through with exiting to the great beyond. So they absolutely can intervene, and when they deem it necessary, break the rules. Meaning they are capable of giving Soon-Yi what she requested in the form of a second soul that can then turn her into the red panda. In fact, it could absolutely be this very event that caused the count to be off centuries ago.
The count's off.
I seriously doubt that. The count hasn't been off in centuries.
But if every member of this family also has this particular gift, would it mean that the count would be off each time a new member is born? And I actually don't think so, because once they've changed the rules, then from then on they would just account for it. But why would they continue to pass on the gift to each new member of the family? And the answer is that, like, not much has really changed, has it? Soon-Yi prayed for a gift and they gave it to her. Each new generation prays to Soon-Yi every day. In fact, it's kind of like Meilin's family's like the whole thing. I think even the timing of the red moon makes sense. It's basically causing a thin spot in the astral plane so that the ceremony can work. Moonwind obviously has a very different relationship, with astral transmigration displacement than Mr. Gao, but he also does cite an astrological alignment that is necessary in order for Joe to return.
And that won't occur until Orcus moves into the house of Gemini.
Exactly. Astral transmigration displacement. Simple stuff. Moving on from that nonsense though, it also makes sense as to how the red panda transformation takes place in the first place. We know it's basically caused by the sensation of any strong emotion of any kind. Basically what's happening here is that anytime Mei is feeling one of these strong emotions, she is being forced into the zone, which means that her human soul is exiting to the astral plane, and the only thing left inside of her physical human body is the panda spirit. If she's able to control her emotions though, she is then able to exit the zone and return back to her human body and transform back into herself. But then when she does return, the panda soul isn't being forced out, it's still there, which is why when she's back in her human form, she still has the red hair, which is also what we see in the reflection inside of the astral plane, and it's why the rest of her family members don't have the red hair, because they have separated themselves from the red panda spirit. As long as Meilin keeps the panda spirit inside of her, she will continue to have the red hair. But if she ever did decide to remove it, she would go back to how we saw her at the beginning of the movie. So in conclusion, when Meilin receives her red panda spirit, she has two souls inside of her henceforth. For my question of the day though, guys, is there anybody else inside of the Pixarverse that you think could have two souls? Let us know in the towel section down below. But as ever, guys, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you'd like to find out whether or not Woody from Toy Story has a soul of his own, you can check out this video over here. Otherwise, until next time, bye.